Hello everybody, welcome back to Growing in the Cove. My name is Stacy and I garden in Zone 5B, Newfoundland. Today I wanted to talk about some of my favorite vegetables for beginner gardeners. This is a very common question that I get asked of, I really want to dip my toe into gardening, where would you recommend I start? So I pretty much have the same answer every time somebody asks me this question, and I thought it was worthy of a video, especially if you are interested in starting to dabble in some gardening this summer. And I promise you, none of these things are scary or complicated. So if you're interested to hear what I think of these vegetables, please keep watching. So let's get into some of the varieties that I'm recommending to the beginner vegetable gardener. The criteria that I kept in mind for this was that I tended to choose things that you could direct sow in the garden, meaning that you could plant them directly out in the garden and you don't need to start them indoors or have any equipment like grow lights and stuff like I have in order to do it. And also I didn't want the vegetables that I chose to be too high maintenance or pest ridden or something that required a lot of work. I wanted this to be easy vegetables that make you feel like, hey, I've got a green thumb. Okay, so number one on my list is bush beans. Bush beans are so easy to grow. You literally stick them in the ground and within a couple of months, they will produce and produce and produce. They have these amazing, humongous seeds that are so easy to plant. Children can plant them. And if you like cooking, they are like the perfect side to a barbecue in the summertime. We cook with our bush beans constantly. So there's a lot of different varieties, a lot of cool colors you can get, but you could plant these in the ground and boom, you have beans, and they are just one of the easiest vegetables to grow. And it's still one of my favorite things to grow because it's just so rewarding. So bush beans are my number one. Number two are peas. So you can get a lot of different varieties of peas, but again, this is another one that has a large seed that is super easy to poke into the ground. With peas, you just need to wait until the soil can be worked. So basically, as soon as the snow melts and the soil is no longer frozen, you can plant peas and they will grow even before your last frost. Now you will need something for them to climb. This is what the pea seeds look like. You will need something to support them. Even when you have these little container varieties, as you can see here, they still have a little tomato cage in here because they will grow these vines and they can kind of flop. But fresh peas from the garden are so delicious. They taste nothing like peas from the grocery store. The only thing I would caution is that be careful of the variety that you're buying. If you want sugar snap peas, make sure you get a variety that's sugar snap. And if you buy English peas, those are the varieties that you can't eat the pods and you actually have to shell them. I made that mistake my first year gardening when I tried to bite into an English pea and it was a very tough pod, not a nice experience. But peas are super easy and most people like to just pick these when they're out in the garden and they're a fun little garden snack. Highly recommend peas. Next up, I have carrots. Carrots are an easy one to grow and it just takes time with carrots. So for me, I usually seed my carrots around the end of May, beginning of June. And by the end of September, I'm pulling carrots out of my garden. The only amount of work to them is that you have to thin them. So when you sprinkle these super tiny seeds and they do sprout, you do need to cut off the tops and leave at least, I think they say 2 inches of space in between each carrot, or you'll get a bunch of really skinny carrots. So that would be the only amount of maintenance to planting carrots, but otherwise they're an amazing vegetable. You can put them in grow bags, you can put them in containers. They are one of my favorite things to grow, so rewarding, and a fresh garden carrot is life-changing. So highly recommend carrots. Next up, we have lettuce. Lettuce is very easy to grow. Basically, you can just sprinkle this in your garden, and as long as the slugs don't eat the baby lettuce that is emerging, you will have greens for probably 6 weeks or more. The only thing about lettuce is that in the hottest parts of summer, it will go to seed. It's too hot for it. So lettuce is really good at the beginning of summer and spring and also in the fall. So if you buy a pack of seeds, you could plant it multiple times to keep a steady supply of lettuce going throughout the entire season. But lettuce is great to have on hand, and when you don't have to go and buy it at the grocery store, it's very satisfying to be self-sufficient in your greens. So highly recommend lettuce. Next up, zucchini. Now this is one that you don't have to grow from seed. You could very easily go to your garden center and buy a zucchini plant. In fact, the first time I ever grew zucchini, I bought a transplant and put it in my garden. And you just need to make sure the soil is really warm. Usually for here in Newfoundland, by the end of June is a good time for squash because hopefully there's no threat of frost anymore and they love the heat. And basically this will just keep producing zucchini on zucchini. And sometimes it becomes a little bit of a problem because you have more zucchini than one family or one person can ever eat. So plant with caution. 2 plants can produce a lot of squash. So you don't need to plant 10 plants of zucchini. But this is another one that just makes me feel like such an excellent gardener. And it's so rewarding to go out and check every day for your zucchini because they grow so fast. So highly recommend zucchini. Next up is kale. Kale was one of the first things that I grew in my garden. When I gardened in the community garden before I moved to this house, I saw a lot of people had kale growing. And the first time I grew it, I actually bought plants from a nursery, and you could do that and that would be fine, or you could buy the seeds. The seeds are super cheap. But kale is pretty bulletproof, and if you like eating kale, then it's great just to be able to go out in the garden and rip off a few leaves. And I mean, it's okay in the cold weather, it's okay in summer. It's pretty much will take any elements of weather that you throw at it. And yeah, I mean, some people don't like kale, but I love having kale in my garden and I wouldn't go without it. Radish is up next. Now this one kind of comes with a warning. Radish is a little bit persnickety in that if you plant it too late, it will bolt and go to seed. So you really have to plant this at the perfect time, which usually is late spring, and radish will usually produce within about 4 to 6 weeks. You will have radishes. So this is one of the fastest crops you can plant from seed to vegetable. It's one of the fastest things that you can grow. But I personally have trouble getting that sweet spot for radishes. Some years I have great radishes, but other years it just warms up really quickly and then they all bolt and they go to flower and then I don't have any radishes. However, if you get the timing right, they're super easy to just stick the seeds in the ground and they will grow and you will have radishes. And then bonus is potatoes. So in the spring, when the garden centers start getting in their stock, they will have potato seed for sale. So these are basically just little tiny potatoes. I've actually saved seed from last year's garden. I believe these are fingerlings and this might be a russet, but these are a set it and forget it type of crop. For me, I tend to plant my potatoes in the realm of May 24th weekend, and I plant them deep in the ground. I add a little bit more soil on top of them as they grow, and that's pretty much it. A potato grows itself. If you throw a little bit of fertilizer on it, they'll be happy. The only thing labor intensive about growing potatoes is when you have to go and dig them up. But again, it's one of those things that is so fruitful that it makes you feel like such a good gardener when you have a wheelbarrow full of potatoes from really just a few rows of plants. So if you have the room for it, potatoes are a good one to try, but you can also grow potatoes in containers or in grow bags and just continue to add soil to the bag as the potato grows. And you could get, I don't know, I haven't tried it myself, but you could probably get 8 to 10 potatoes in one grow bag. So that would be my wild card. Another thing to consider is starting a herb garden. If you like cooking and that's something that you buy a lot of, I would suggest investing in some perennial herbs. It takes them a couple of years to get established, but I would be lost without my perennial herb garden. So my recommendations would be, if you go to a garden center, I would pick up thyme, sage, and oregano. They will come back every year, and it's just amazing to go out in the garden and snip a few sprigs whenever you need them. And a reminder that if you do buy rosemary, rosemary is not hardy here, so it will only live as an annual in your garden. So that's it for me on some of my favorite things to start in the beginner vegetable garden. Let me know if you've grown any of these things before, or if you have plans to start this summer, or if there's other vegetables that you think I should include. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.